Hello, awesome people. I hope you're having a great day today. Today we're taking a look at the novel Passage to Dawn, which was written by R.A. Salvatore. It's the 10th book and the 4th book in that third sort of series of the Drow Chronicles that started with the Crystal Shard. These things were being published pretty heavily in the 80s and the 90s by R.A. Salvatore, whose first book was published in the Crystal Shard. For this series. It was the second book published by TSR for this world, the Forgotten Realms, that they created. R.A. Salvatore has had a big publishing career, so you probably know who he is. He's got 22 bestsellers, so he's a big name in the genre. And he created a character in the first book in this series that he still writes in that has been a big, huge hit among fans, Drow. So this is the next book in that series that we've been doing a deeper dive into for you folks that I've been going back to and rereading for the channel. So there you are. That's sort of what we're doing with this book now. So the character Drow is a ranger from the Underdark, from an evil race of creatures called the Dark Elves. And they're pretty bad people. They're pretty nasty. But he has been born with pangs of a conscience. So he is somebody who's been trying to build up his life over time. And he'll eventually leave the Underdark, and he will arrive in the surface world, where he is an outcast in order to find his place. He definitely reminds me of two major icons from fantasy from two previous generations. Aragorn, the ranger from J.R.R. Tolkien's The Lord of the Rings series, one of the key characters there, who is a ranger. He can track people. He's stealthy, outdoors. He has great relationships with animals. He can use herbs, those sorts of things, and so forth. And Drow, again, is a ranger, and he has a lot of those sorts of things, and will be trained as a ranger in one of the Preludes trilogies that we've already reviewed for you, called Sojourn. And then he's also from an evil race of characters, but is a good guy, so he has to deal with that. And that's very similar to Michael Moorcock's Elric of Melniboné from the Eternal Champion overarching series of books for you. And the Melnibonéans were just as evil and as vile as the Drow are, the Dark Elves that Drizzt has fled from in order to find himself back home. So basically what's been happening over time is that a lot of these characters that have appeared in various journeys over time have been reappearing again and again and again. And so what's going to wind up happening in this book, and again, I keep my reviews spoiler free, so I'm not going to do a deep dive into this for you folks, but basically what's going to happen in this book is that, and this book will have been set up, the basic sort of archetype from the previous book, from an alliance from one of the goddesses and big bads of Drow society named Lolth, and she allied herself with Urtu, a demon who appeared in the first book, the Crystal Shard, and was banished by Drizzt. And so now he wants to remove that banishment, and only Drizzt can remove it for him voluntarily, in order to come back and be banished from his home plane of the abyss and coming back to the world and wreaking a lot of havoc. So she has given him a gift that she knows in the previous book that she knows is going to make Drizzt want to give Urtu back to the world in order to trade for it. So that's basically what's happening in the previous book, and then this book will start off Drizzt 6 years after the previous book, book 9, and Drizzt and Catti-brie, one of the friends from the northern area, and one of the two major people in this character concepts, are on a ship sailing against pirates, and so there's going to be fighting some pirates and running into pirates and so forth in a ship, and characters and a captain that already appeared in the third book, so they are reappearing now in book 10, and they're going to be there for like 2 parts of a 5-part overall story, so like about 140 pages. They're going to be on the ship and floating around doing quests and so forth and trying to figure out what's happening. And Urtu's getting more and more involved with them, manipulating them from the abyss. And so we'll be seeing both the Urtu side of things as well as the Drow side of things as the other sort of point of view character. So that way you'll be seeing all the things that are happening. Ultimately, he'll realize what's happening. And then we're going to have a mad rush for an artifact that is the title thing from the first book. So there you are. That's basically the story in a nutshell without any spoilers. Just basic story beats for you folks, so that way you can go back into it. As a reminder, this channel is named The Worst Thing About New Books, which is a quote from a French philosopher named Jacques Joubert, who said that the worst thing about new books was that they kept us from reading the old ones. So I like to go back and read a lot of older books, sometimes things from the pulp era, sometimes the older things that are centuries old, or in this case, going back and rereading things that are from the 80s and 90s in this case of this series. I also like to go back and reread things that I haven't gone back and reread for a while. I really enjoy that too. Coming back to it now, somebody who's 45 and refreshed and energized. What do I think now, right? So I'm going to be giving this a 7+. It's solid. I knocked it out in 4 days. It was pretty fast. It's about 330 pages long, and I knocked out about 100 pages, 10 pages every 2 hours over the course of 4 days. So I did it pretty quickly. I knocked it out. It's about 6 or 7 hours. So it shouldn't take you that much of your time in order for you to knock it out. And you could knock it out in 1 day if you had just dedicated 6 or 7 hours to it. And that kind of fun stuff is happening. So anyway, R.A. Salvatore was at one point in time my favorite writer, my second favorite writer after Tolkien himself, after I read The Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit. In between 5th and 6th grade, I then started to do a deeper dive into fantasy because I loved it so much. And I read stuff like the Dragon Riders of Pern by Anne McCaffrey, and I read the Complete Book of Swords by Fred Saberhagen, and so forth. And then later on, I started to read the Dragonlance stuff by Margaret Weiss and Tracy Hickman. There are 6 books in their first 2 trilogies. And then I liked it so much that I moved on to the Forgotten Realms, picked up the first book, Dark Walker Mouche, liked it. Picked up the second book that was published in that series, The Crystal Shard, loved it, and I've stuck with R.A. Salvatore ever since. And he became my second favorite author after Tolkien, and then before Michael Moorcock in high school. For my last 2 or 3 years in high school. So he was my second favorite author of 4. H.P. Lovecraft became my 4th favorite in college. So there you are. So I really still have a fond spot for him. I have a lot of his books that aren't in the Forgotten Realms series or by Drizzt Do'Urden, the key character that he created and was a major archetype in Dungeons & Dragons. And Drizzt Do'Urden is probably the most well-known character in Dungeons & Dragons. For example, in the 90s video game Baldur's Gate, you're adventuring, right, as a character set in the Forgotten Realms, and you can run into Drizzt fighting some bad guys, and you can join his battle, right? So this is something that, and then he appears again in the sequel, Baldur's Gate 2, as somebody that you could recruit and in order to help you out in the big bad fight. So this is somebody who regularly will show up. He's a big major character, and R.A. Salvatore created him. So good stuff to him. So going back and reading this series is a lot of fun. So this is like I said, the 4th book of the 3rd and the final book in the 3rd series, and 10th book overall in the Drizzt Do'Urden series. And now I'm going to be leaving this behind. I picked up a book that just was published by J.R.R. Tolkien called The Fall of Numenor, which I've already started. I knocked out about 80 pages of that last night. It'll probably get published earlier because I'm going to be publishing these sequentially, and I'm obviously going to be doing the 10th book before the next book in the Tolkien series that I've been doing. So I'll be doing it. But that's my next book, and so I'll be moving on from the series, but I would not be surprised if I come back to it at some point in time and keep myself friendly. But there you are. I'll go ahead and leave you to it. Have you read Passage to Dawn by R.A. Salvatore? If so, what did you think about it? Did you agree or disagree with my review of 7+ out of 10? If so, would you like to talk about it in the comments below? Or would you like to talk about spoilers or the ending or anything else? Let's do so. If you enjoyed this video, hey, why not hit that subscribe button? There'll be a lot more of these to follow. And then I want to thank you so much for taking some time out of your day and investing it and watching my video. We all have so many things that are happening in our lives, and we're pulled in so many different directions. So the fact that you spent this time with me is incredibly humbling, and I appreciate it. So thanks again, and have an amazing day.